Thank you. Good morning, everyone. And thanks, first of all, to Socitm for giving us the opportunity to share with you some of the work we're doing in the commercial space around technology on behalf of local government, work that affects local authorities and its supply chains. Crown Commercial Service, first of all, is a very significant procurement aggregator on any scale whatsoever. It manages around about £12 billion of public sector expenditure, more than half of which is managed outside of Whitehall departments. Of that 12 billion, something in the order of 2.5 billion is in the technology space. That means that Crown Commercial Service can become, and is evolving to become, a much more effective service provider to its customers by leveraging in all sorts of different ways the sort of scale that it can provide. In the technology space, we do not work in isolation, so we're working closely right across the piece with buying organisations in local authorities such as YPO, ESPO, NEPO and CBC. The work that we're presenting today emerges from work that was started in London about 2.5 years ago, whereby the 33 London boroughs wanted to drive more commercial value and better technology innovation collectively from its collective supplier base. But it had no organisation capable of working effectively across the 33. So at that point, the approach, what was then Government Procurement Service, are working closely not so much with procurement, but with CIOs who have much more influence on the IT architecture and landscape in their organisation than the Procurement Department typically has. Working with CIOs, we evolved a programme of work. Now that programme of work can be summarised in a couple of ways. First of all, it's about improving local authorities' corporate relationships with its key suppliers. Yes, there's a lot of innovation, there's a lot of new entrants, but if you look at local authority supply markets, no matter which one it is, they're dominated by a handful of players. Each individual local authority often feels quite disempowered in its negotiation with those major, very often multinational companies. So one of the things that we're doing is working with local government collectively on its line of business applications providers. That market is dominated to the tune of 70% by 3 suppliers. They are Capita, Civica and Northgate. But also working with local authorities on the relationships with Microsoft, with SAP, with Oracle. Some of the services that we provide and can work with local authorities to deliver aren't just procurement services. So for example, we've evolved a service that there's a load of interest in around licence management, licence transfer, audit defence services. We don't charge for any of that. There's no transaction with us whatsoever, except to use some of the expertise and leverage some of the central procurement leverage that Crown Commercial Service has. So we work on supplier management. We also work at stimulating new markets in local government, new digital markets and new entrants. One of the key relationships for us there is obviously with Government Digital Service, and we work with Government Digital Service jointly to produce what is currently called the Cloud Store and will next year become the Digital Marketplace. Of that, there's in the order of 8,000 suppliers with services on it, a total of 16,000 services, and of the supplier number, 88% are small and medium enterprises. One of the things, and this is in a way an almost accidental, but I think a very attractive evolution for local government, is what austerity has meant in many cases is that back office functions, including procurement and local authorities, are under pressure, either from their leaders or the mayor, to become revenue generating. So one of the difficulties in breaking down silos across authorities is how does something that works well in one authority get even known about, far less used or deployed somewhere else. So something that's emerged really in recent months is that the Cloud Store or the Digital Marketplace can become a platform through which local authorities themselves can market IT, technology, cloud hosted services that they have developed across the piece and to other local authorities. That provides 2 benefits to them. One, there's a possibility of generating a revenue stream from their own intellectual capital. And secondly, it's a much better way of socialising and rolling out what might be very useful inventions or interventions to other local authorities. I'm the first of 3 speakers in the next 30 minutes, so I'm going to be very brief. I'm just going to talk to you a little about what is in a way the major output of the engagement begun by London 2.5 years ago. Before I say that, I should also say that the work we did in London got recognition from the Local Government Association itself attempting to evolve a national procurement strategy across the piece for local authorities. And the London project was asked to lead a national category management programme for commercial improvements in technology. And one of its major outputs is the Local Authority Software Applications Framework. You're going to get all of these slides as part of the conference pack, so I don't intend to walk through them. I just want to point out one or two important things. First is something in the sense of scale again. So if you look at local government spending, around about 2 to 2.5 billion annually is spent by local authorities collectively on technology. Whenever we've been able to analyse a spend profile for an authority or a group of authorities, spend on software software applications accounts for around about 50%. Now that includes enterprise software applications that are not specific to local government, so finance applications, CRM and so on. But we estimate that up to around about 500 million a year is spent by local authorities on maintaining their suite of line of business applications, by which we mean housing applications, social care, parking and so on. And those markets, as I said, are dominated in fact by 3 suppliers. So Northgate has commercial relationships with 400 local authorities and probably in the order of 1,000 contracts. A similar footprint would be found for Capita and for Civica. Others specialise in particular markets. So it's quite rare in this market for there to be more than 4 or 5 active and capable players in any one application. And that's a situation that has led to huge variation in what local authorities pay on support and maintenance costs. I'm not talking 5 or 10% that you could attribute to greater or lesser scale among procurement departments. I'm talking variance of 5 or 6 times. And I'm not making the numbers up, I've seen the data. It's 5 or 6 times variance in support and maintenance costs. Highly bespoke application development, unnecessarily bespoke, drives cost for everyone, and a great deal of isolation. So even within a single local authority, it actually took an audit commission report to point out to one local authority that, unknown to its central finance department, they were managing 7 contracts with the same supplier, and if you looked at it collectively, their spend with that supplier put them above a threshold where the internal standing orders required there to be a much more disciplined supplier management programme than there was. So how does the Local Authority Software Applications Framework try to address some of that? It's been led by local government. The specification, we took some time developing this, specification was driven by local authorities. We have a lotting structure, and I want to just touch a little bit on that lotting structure. So in terms of scope, as I said, about 2.5 billion a year, about 40% on software. This framework does relate to other frameworks. The one I want to touch on most is how it relates to CloudStore. When we were developing local authority application software, we were in discussion with GDS about did this or didn't it conflict with the digital aims of government more widely. It doesn't conflict with it. It is intended essentially as a bridge. So what you have in this marketplace is almost all of these systems are on the traditional license and support model, where support is charged at a percentage of the license fee, varies between 18 and 25%, depending on what supplier it is and what year you took the license out. The installations are often maintained for 10 years, 15, 20 in some cases. And that means that you're actually paying, what drives support and maintenance cost differentials, you're paying a 25% of what the license cost you when you took it out. It bears no relationship to the economic cost of delivering support and maintenance today. That's why the variance is so wide. Now, one way, of course, of trying to get out of that lock-in is to move from a license and support model, whereby the license is perpetual and is capitalised and you're servicing an asset, to moving toward software as a service. But this market is simply not mature enough to deliver SaaS solutions right across the piece. So what the Local Authority Software Applications Framework is intended to do is to act as a bridge whereby we're moving from a traditional and not very well functioning market to one that is much more about subscription-based services and, as a consequence, a bit more commoditised. So we expect to evolve over the 4-year life of the framework what are effectively will become offers on the digital marketplace platform. So there's some overlap, but there's some significant difference. In terms of locking structure, I want to draw attention in particular to Lot 9, because a lot of what the Chief Information Officers and local authorities were telling us is, yes, we have commercial issues with these applications, but more than the commercial issues, we've got issues of how they actually work. They don't actually deliver what we want them to deliver. They're somewhat clunky, they don't integrate very well, we don't have access to the APIs, we can't connect the systems up, all this kind of thing. So what this lot is about, it was driven by local government in London, is about creating a space where there can be much more invention on how these systems are deployed, what uses they're put to, how they can most effectively be mobilised, all that kind of thing. And what that means for the major vertically integrated suppliers is to open up their APIs. Now, in the past, APIs were either not made available or made available at such prohibitive cost that it wasn't worthwhile investing in them. And that's something we're really trying to break down. And we had some success on that. Hierarchy of terms and conditions is just a matter of detail. How to use it, two things, and this is the last point I want to make. Direct award, what that means is this framework will also have a catalogue. That catalogue will have a price for support and maintenance, it'll have a price for where they charge for it, access to APIs, a price for consultancy day rates. That means that anyone, irrespective of how you purchased your current line of business application, can use this catalogue to pay for support and maintenance, or to access consultancy day rates, or to access APIs when you have to. You do not have to have taken the contract out under this framework, and you won't have really had an opportunity to. The second thing it does is to enable further competition. So when you need to renew or market test one of your line of business applications, if you do it through this platform, you can specify still in whichever way you want, then local authorities collectively will get a much better collective view on what their expenditure is with those suppliers in that market and where things are working more effectively, because at the moment local government is extremely isolated and in quite a weak position in terms of managing this market effectively. So some things to remember that you can pull off. There's contact details, contact any of us for more information on that or anything else that we talk about today. With that, I'm going to pass on to my colleague Kelvin, who's going to talk through some other Crown Commercial Service offers in more detail. And I'll take my seat there and can take questions afterwards. Thanks for listening. Thank you.
And now Kelvin Laing.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Kelvin Lee, Crown Commercial Service. I head up the technology products category. So I have responsibility for about £1.5 billion worth of spend. Savings total of about £150 million this year, to give you some context. Our category is all about commoditisation, so hardware, software commoditisation, and also software solutions. What I want to talk to you about today, I'll just go through a slide on the commercial DNA of CCS, give you an overview of the new organisation, what we're trying to achieve, and then I'm going to go through some of the other frameworks that we have in place. So not laser in any detail, but some of the other stuff we've got, and then also some of the other managed service stuff that we're trying to achieve. So the first slide here, what we have is just the current landscape and pipeline of frameworks that we have in place. The only thing I'd like to draw attention to there is the reduction in the amount of frameworks. Now, as Crown Commercial Service, I think when I joined 6 months ago, I think it was a well-known fact that we do procurements pretty well. So we run the procurement process pretty well, we know the EU regulations, and we can manage that process. What we perhaps didn't do so well is the upfront bit, the stakeholder engagement. Will's talked a lot about that and shown the improvements we're making there. But also the back-end bit, and that's managing these contracts, the supplier management, the contract management. One of the first things we're trying to do is reduce the amount of agreements we have out there. So I believe there's about 21 current contracts on that list. That's reduced from 43 within the last 18 months, and will probably be reduced further. We want to make them simpler, we want to make them easier to understand, and we want fewer of them. There's a little pipeline again, as Will said. These will be in your packs, so I'm not going to go over this in too much detail, guys. So some of the contracts that we've got in place or got in the pipeline. Technology products. This covers our commodity offering. So big contract. It's probably going to attract, we feel, about £1 billion worth of spend a year. It's broken down into 4 lots. First lot is the hardware lot. Second lot is packaged software licensing. Third lot, as this framework was developed in collaboration with the MOD, is all about IA, products with a secure wrap. And then the fourth lot, which is probably the most interesting one, is actually a direct manufacturer's lot. So this is where you can go and buy your tin directly. You can aggregate with other customers. We could use e-auctions. We'll be running a quarterly e-auction through lot 4 of this framework. It does work on committed volumes, so we'll need to provide commitment to transact under this lot. Okay, there's been some discussion about moving forwards, easier ways to procure today. What we're definitely going to do is get this catalogue up and running, so linked to the technology products framework will be the technology catalogue. I was told when I joined Crown Commercial Service, some of the analysis we did, about 200,000 purchases under £4,000 being done through further competitions. Now, it's probably costing you more than £4,000 to run them further competitions in some cases. So we want a catalogue, we want this easy, low-value commodity transactions. There's no charge for customers, there's no charge for suppliers for using the catalogue, it's dynamic, there's instant refreshes, there's search capability in the catalogue. We're hoping it will be live sort of mid-November. Okay, but what you can be assured is all the content within that catalogue is OGIM compliant. It's coming from frameworks which have been competed. Okay, the next thing I want to discuss, it's not direct contracts, but it's the deals that we're doing now with some of the OEMs. Some of you may have taken advantage of the deal we did with Microsoft on the XP custom support. That was done because we had a direct agreement with Microsoft supported by a Crown representative through the Crown Commercial Service. We want more of these in place. We want to be able to affect the market easier, and we feel that we need these agreements in place to do that. I've just finalised the agreement with Apple. We're in discussions again with Microsoft to renew that agreement, SAP, IBM, and then some of the hardware OEMs as well. Please take advantage of these. These are for everybody's use. Okay, so they're not commitments, they're not contracts, they are agreements that we have in place that we can set out, simplify, standardise T's and C's and discount structures. If you want to know anything more about any of the OEM agreements, guys, there's some contacts at the back of the pack. Okay. Not going to go into too much detail in this, especially LASA, because Will's talked about that, but here in the pack again some of the other agreements we're working on. Will's talked about line of business under LASA, CSS is more the horizontals, your CRM systems, your ERP systems and the like. I will touch on EASS, Enterprise Application Support Services. This is something quite exciting that we've done. Again, this is from feedback, this is what we've heard from our customers. We've got lots of legacy systems that we're paying high support costs on, support and maintenance. We've put a contract in place with third-party suppliers that can provide that support and maintenance for you, probably about 50% of the cost of what you're getting from some of the OEMs. Lot structure on EASS, Lot 1 is Oracle E-Business Suite, Lot 2 is SAP, Lot 3 is the Oracle family, and then Lot 4 is a range of other systems that are out there. Okay, other solutions within CSS at the moment. Lots to talk about G-Cloud today already, so I won't touch on that. Obviously, infrastructure platform, software as a service through G-Cloud. Shoot how we're using it. It's been a success story. 83% SMEs, I believe, at last count, and G-Cloud 6 is on its way. Digital Services Framework. I believe version 2 of that is also on its way. I will touch a bit more on the software licensing team. Team of chaps that used to work for me, we've now broken them out, as Will mentioned, to provide this free roaming consultancy service. If you've come in contact with them before, great group of guys, intelligent guys, they know their vendors, they can provide services such as audit defence, they can give you benchmarking, and they can produce some really good savings for you, you know, in the millions of pounds sometimes. Please take advantage of that service, guys. We also have a pool of licences, which we're reusing in government, which the software licensing guys will be able to tell you about. So this is an amnesty, if you like, so you put your licences in the pot, and if we've got any, we'll supply them to you free of charge. So if you input in, hopefully you'll get something out of the back end of that. And we're carrying out a full software licence review. Currently across central government, we will move into the wider public sector as well. Okay, and then we'll develop a SAM tool, or software asset management tool, to give us a view of what we have in government. So exciting stuff going on. Now, I said earlier, I think we do the middle part well, so the procurement part well, but I think with the new regulations, dynamic purchasing systems coming in, more catalogues, easier ways to procure, we'll need to put less focus in that area. So our focus is going to turn to the upfront engagement, and it will turn to the back end, the supplier relationship management, the contract management. Okay, I've got a real drive. We're working with Pro5, buying organisation, may be here today, some of you may be members of that. And we're working on a new SRM agenda, which we've got up and running. I'm very keen to do this. When I first came into CCS, I had a lot of supplier meetings, maybe some people in the room, and I got the impression that they didn't see Crown Commercial Service as an important part in the whole process, which surprised me, you know, as we were letting the contracts. And that may be of the perception they got, CCS of perhaps letting the contract and leaving it alone and leaving the customers to deal with it. That's going to change. We will become an important part of the process. We will manage the supplier relationships. We work with our customers to manage them better. There's various ways we can do that. We've got a new classification segmentation tool, which we're working through to tier all the suppliers. We've got a new SRM agenda. There'll be regular 360 meetings, regular KPIs, management, reporting against. MI will be checked. We will be doing regular audits on costs to ensure suppliers are charging the correct markups through the frameworks. And eventually, I would like some supplier league tables. Whether I'm allowed to publish them or not, I'm not quite sure as yet, but that's what I'm pushing for. But as with everything, guys, it's not about supplier bashing. You know, I really feel that these need to be win-win relationships for everybody to make them effective. You know, suppliers, Crown Commercial Service, and the customers. A couple of other things that we want to start doing for our customers. Benchmarking, something we're doing for the police at the moment on quite a large scale. Benchmarking their prices against their peers, against the CCS frameworks. We're also doing some benchmarking exercise of suppliers against suppliers. Okay, so, and that again, it's a free service we can offer for you. Monthly price guide. This is something that we're kicking off before the end of the year. Again, available to everybody. This won't use real data, but what it will give you is a guide of where we think you should be buying things at, especially small value commodity products. You know, a guide to the lowest and the highest. So then if you go into the catalogue, you've got a guide price for yourself. It will also include handy hints and tips, when to buy your tin, when it's supplier's end of year, stuff like that. This is something we'll have up and running by the end of the year, as I say. Again, contact details at the end of that. Get in touch if you're interested. Final thing I want to speak about on the ongoing management of contracts is aggregation. Now again, we've talked about that today, standardisation, commoditisation. It leads to aggregation. We have lot 4 of the technology products framework where we can run regular e-auction. The more we can aggregate, obviously, the better deals we're going to get. We have a team now dedicated to aggregation. We have leads for wider public sector. We will have a lead for local government. So again, please get in touch if you're interested in aggregating some of your demand. again, final slide. Well, it's in there. It's probably on the back of Will's, but contact details for all the people in Crown Commercial Service. Okay. Thanks for that. I'll take any questions when we sit down at the end, and I'll hand over to. Okay.
Okay, thanks, Kelvin. Quickly off the opportunity for anybody who has a question they would like to put to any or all of the panel. There's a hand. First one up at the back there, waving. Lady, I think.
Mary Foley from the Chartered Institute of Taxation. Very interesting. Is there any appetite to open up these services to the third sector?
Yeah, certainly. I think there's a strategy, and we've worked through central government first. My team is now 75% focused on wider public sector, but I don't see any reason why not.
Actually, yes, there is. So the reason I focus so much on local authorities was because I was talking specifically about a particular framework. But all of the Crown Commercial Service outputs are available to organisations in the third sector, and we have tried several times actually. But because to get a formal kind of a relationship management programme, but because the sector is so diverse, that's proved quite challenging. But the answer to your question is yes, it's all available, and also third sector organisations can also become providers on G-Cloud and so on, just as anyone else can.
Okay. After the next speaker, we'll break for coffee then. So hopefully, if you've got any other burning questions you want to put to the guys, they'll be around here or in the exhibition area. Please do come and grab them and ask any questions. We do have to move on, so please again show your appreciation for Will Laing.